What has happened, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review the Season 2 premiere of Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty, a show that I would not necessarily characterize as like top-tier, gold standard HBO content. However, it is wildly entertaining, and the way I always pitch it to people, for a guy who does not follow basketball, for a guy who might be the worst basketball player that this fine country of ours ever produced. I mean, I played from 3rd grade to 8th grade, and I never scored a single basket. So suffice to say, I suck at basketball. I've never been interested in basketball. However, this is a very entertaining show. It's where kind of like the cocaine and sex and sleaze factor of Hollywood collides with organized sports in the late 70s and early 80s. And obviously it's based on history, but more specifically, it is based on the book Showtime, Magic, Kareem, Riley, and the Los Angeles Lakers Dynasty of the 1980s by Jeff Pearlman. I've never read the book, but I've listened to the audiobook 1.5 times now. I listened to it last year, and then I listened to the first half to get ready or to get prepared for this season. So while I've not read the book, I have had Malcolm Hilgartner read it to me, and goddamn, he's a really good fucking actor. And even if you find yourself indifferent to the sport of basketball, I strongly recommend people hunt down the book Showtime. It fucking rocks. And while I might not describe myself as a basketball fan, I'm not entirely unfamiliar with the sport because my family is basketball crazy. It is their first and only religion. I've had 6 siblings go to UNC Chapel Hill. They are Tar Heel fans, to put it mildly. Basically, from the beginning of basketball season to the end of basketball season, the entire family thread gets taken over by basketball discussions. And I always feel a little bit like the black sheep or like I'm missing out, but I'm just not that interested in following that sport. The only sport that I follow is mixed martial arts, which I follow year-round. I'm obsessed with mixed martial arts. But I am interested in history, and I am interested in the pursuit of greatness. And that's one thing that's so great about this book, or the book Showtime and the show Winning Time. It's about the pursuit of legacy, the pursuit of greatness, or as the old expression goes, effort in sports is a matter of character rather than reward. It is an end in itself rather than a means to an end. I mean, I'm a movie freak, I'm a video game freak, I'm a book freak, but I was forced to play sports as a kid, and so I kind of, in a weird way, in an intellectual way, I can understand the value of sports, even if I was just not equipped to do well at them as a child. And I feel like the second season of Winning Time has a ton of potential because this is not about kind of the rags to riches story of Magic Johnson arriving at the Lakers and then winning a national championship in his first year. This is about like heavy lies the crown or the burden of having won and what happens afterwards. Because as they describe early on in this episode, after the Celtics owner, Red Auerbach, if that's how you say his name, but anyway, the guy played by Michael Chiklis, after he gloats to them about how after winning a championship, players tend to get distracted. And Jerry West absolutely concurs. Winning a championship is a double-edged sword. It brings glitz, it brings glamour, it brings money, it brings advertising opportunities, it brings sponsorships, it brings all kinds of things. But then everybody's out there to eat you alive. And the Celtics are coming, as we saw at the end of this episode, when Larry Bird tells Magic, take a seat, you're about to get your own private show. And I love how Magic turns to the camera, is like, I really hate that motherfucker, or something along those lines. And as everybody knows, Magic and Bird were fierce rivals early on, but they eventually became very close friends. So let's just enjoy the rivalry while it remains heated. And I thought it was a narrative stroke of genius having a flash forward at the beginning of this episode where we see the players, after beating the Celtics on their home court in 1984, and just running to the bus as like all hell breaks loose. I mean, Celtics fans, they like their team quite a bit, and they basically just start ripping the bus to pieces. And Adrian Brody, goddamn, he was put on this earth to do many fine things as an actor, but casting him as Pat Riley is just inspired. And as a former player, he really gets what motivates a player. And he's talking about how, like, we don't want, like, a ring. We want their rings. We want their hearts. And he's just going on and on before the bus gets attacked. And then we cut right to the title sequence, which I'd forgotten just how glorious the title sequence is. But then we cut back to the summer of 1980, where we see the beginning of quite a different season underway, where there are all sorts of problems, all sorts of frictions. And as the showrunner of Winning Time has said in his own words, and the showrunner's name is Max Borenstein, he says, think of Season 2 as The Empire Strikes Back, whereas Season 1 was Star Wars. And I don't know how much I should give away in terms of the actual history, because first and foremost, I don't know where this season's going to end. It's only 7 episodes. It would make sense if they did a season of TV per season of Magic's career, but I don't know if that's how they'll do it. Like, they might jump ahead at different times, but I don't quite know where this season is going to wrap up. But is it a spoiler to acknowledge something that is a matter of historic record? I'm not going to give anything away, but this season has so many interesting subplots to work with, like the coach, Westhead, how he's trying to escape the shadow and the legacy of McKinney, who basically came up with the strategy that won them the championship in season 1 before he had his horrible bicycle accident. But Westhead, he's going to try to do his own thing. We see Riley is still waiting in the wings, and obviously the episode opened with Riley as head coach. We know Westhead is not going to go the distance. And this episode, we got a ton of tension between Kareem and Magic. And I think some of the best scenes of this show are where we see the clash in personalities, the clash in generations, the clash in talent. Obviously, both players are destined to be leaders, and Kareem's a very good captain, but he and Magic could not be more different in terms of just the overall temperament. One's all smiles and one is dour, but they're obviously both all-time greats, and I just feel like the actors who are playing those parts, Quincy Isaiah as Magic Johnson and Solomon Hughes as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, they were just pitch-perfect casting, and they're a delight to watch on screen. Especially during that practice sequence, which gets pretty goddamn heated, but I feel like the filmmaking during the basketball sequences, maybe just because I haven't seen the show in a year, but I feel like they've really kind of kicked it up a notch in terms of the dramatic intensity. But Magic has the audacity to suggest or to imply that perhaps Kareem's getting a little old and can't keep up in the practice, and Kareem gets pissed and they start throwing down, and soon enough it gets really competitive. People are throwing elbows. Kareem gets a scratched cornea. I can't remember in real life whether or not he got hurt in practice or in a game, because it should be said this show takes a lot of liberties with the official history. So much so that a lot of players last year got really fucking pissed about how kind of the official narrative was being portrayed, because there are plenty of dumbasses out there like myself who don't follow the sport, and they're just going to accept this show as kind of gospel. But once again, check out the book Showtime. I don't know if Showtime got its history wrong, but it seems like it's a book that's held in very high regard. But another major source of tension in this episode, at least, is the injury of Magic, where suddenly he realizes he's mortal. And there are a ton of players who started out with the promise of greatness, where one injury totally derailed their careers and they were never heard from ever again. And Magic sees his whole world changing around him, where suddenly girls aren't that concerned if he has an orgasm during sex, and they lecture him about cleaning up the place and that sort of thing. Or he sees that some of his promotional opportunities and sponsorship opportunities are drying up until he officially re-signs with the Lakers, and he realizes, like, holy shit, like, all this can go away if Magic is unable to deliver on like his promise of greatness. I should also add that the season 2 premiere was called One Ring, Don't Make a Dynasty, and it was directed by Sally Richardson Whitfield, who I should mention directed episodes 9 and 10 of season 1, and the episode was written by Max Borenstein and Rodney Barnes. And it seems like they're going to hit the ground running right where they left off from last season. It's great to see that a lot of the same directors and writers are still on the staff, because you always worry about like a bait and switch in terms of like the style, flavor, and tone. HBO has been known to do a bait and switch historically. Like, look at season 1 of Westworld versus season 2 of Westworld. It's almost like two different shows where a lot of the more unsavory ingredients suddenly kind of got pushed to the side, and the show just took on a slightly different form. At least so far so good. It doesn't appear as if Winning Time is going to do that classic kind of bait and switch technique that HBO has employed in the past. Like, obviously, Sopranos did not do a bait and switch. Deadwood did not do a bait and switch. But Winning Time, the era that it's capturing in terms of like the sex and drugs and celebrity and all that stuff, it needs to lean into it, because Magic Johnson likes women. He likes to fuck. I mean, as we see in the fantasy sequence in this, he doesn't like drugs. He doesn't like alcohol. His kryptonite, his Achilles heel is women, and he's gotten a girl pregnant back in Lansing. And he's getting a lot of advice from his legal team about how to distance himself from the problem, basically pay to make it go away. And he's racked with some internal guilt over it, but it's not until he sits down with his parents and gets some real tough love where he realizes, yeah, we need to fix this in a slightly better way than just slapping a Band-Aid on it. And meanwhile, Magic is screwing one of his lawyers, who she admits she's cheating on her husband. Like, there's a lot of, I feel like, yeah, morals get a little harder to hang on to when you got a lot of money on the line. But I think one of the most satisfying moments from season 1 or season 2 is when Magic's dad meets now the ex-lawyer at the door and uses some language which I cannot repeat on YouTube, or my channel would get terminated or suspended indefinitely. But goddamn, the way he phrases it, The writing on the show is very solid, but without great actors, you get nowhere with your great scripts. Anyway, I thought that scene was great, and I love how they just settled the baby issue with the other family, because Magic's parents are going to see this grandchild on a daily basis in their neighborhood every day moving forward. And it seems like the notion of good parenting versus bad parenting was very much a recurring theme throughout the episode, as Dr. Buss is wrestling with what to do with his sons, because he wants his sons around, he wants them to succeed, but they're just not packing the gear, as my grandfather would say, and they've got different values, and they're not as cutthroat, they're a little bit more spoiled, and they're just not as talented or ambitious as their sister Jeannie. Jeannie very much is her father's daughter, same values. I mean, one of the strangest scenes, but it was strange and heartwarming, is when Jeannie sits down next to her father, and they're going through his photo album of all of his past conquests, and she remembers their names. I mean, that is an unusual relationship, but she does not judge him for being a serial philanderer. But goddamn, that scene where they're playing Monopoly and his sons start trying to like help each other out because it's early in the game, and basically, this is the beginning of like the cutthroat corporate culture of the 1980s. He's like, that's not how you play Monopoly. It's survival of the fittest. Like, you go for the jugular, you kill your opposition, etc. and so forth. And he just cannot believe that his sons are just so wishy-washy, especially after he's come up with this strange arrangement where he's going to allow them to pursue their own individual dreams, because that's going to mean additional lines of credit which he can then use to pay all of his players much more money, because he knows the free agency era is coming and he wants to get ahead of it by paying all their stars a hell of a lot of money to make sure their starting lineup remains intact. And speaking of paying players more money, I love seeing the reaction of Jerry West, played by Jason Clarke. And I feel like Jason Clarke's whole career has been leading toward and building up toward playing the famous hothead of Jerry West, where he's like, I only made $800,000 in my entire career. I mean, as we've seen in both season 1 and now, even if it's just like a game of golf, Jerry West he is just a hothead who loves to get pissed, he loves to get competitive, and he just loves to talk shit. And I just find it to be, I thought that performance was one of the best comedic performances of 2022, and it looks like he's got no plans on slowing down whatsoever this season. It's just absolutely incredible. But another actor I really like in the show is Gabby Hoffman as Claire Rothman. I just fucking love her. We didn't get a lot of her in this season or this episode, but her business sense and her vision, and now she's got kind of like, she's got stakes in what is to come, so she's rooting for Dr. Buss to succeed as well. I just feel like that was pitch perfect casting, and she's just absolutely been nailing that part from beginning to now. And I don't know if I'm alone in reacting this way, but I find myself with so many sequences standing up and kind of dancing around or like fist pumping, like when Kareem says in the locker room toward the end where he says, let's prove these fuckers wrong. It was incredibly inspiring, because the team, everybody doubts that they can play without Magic and his improvisational style. Everybody's doubting Westhead, whether or not he can escape the shadow of his former boss. And I won't say any more about Westhead's future prospects, but at a minimum, that scene got me fucking pumped. And then, of course, we get this inspirational speech in the voiceover by Buss about atoms and how, like, atoms can't do anything by themselves. And you think that when Magic walks back on the court, that it's going to be the catalyst for, like, a great victory. And we see it distracts somebody. The ball gets stolen by a Celtics player, and all goes ass over teacup from there. But I just find this show to be deliciously entertaining. Is it as well written or well made as like Succession? I would argue no. I mean, Succession is as good as it gets, shot on film, world-class writing, just pitch perfect topic. But when it comes to just like balls to the wall entertainment with action and beautiful women and kick-ass songs and really interesting source material and history to draw upon, this is a great fucking show. Is it the best show? No, but if people out there hold it in higher regard than I do, let me know down in the comments below. But I'm just thrilled to have a cool show to look forward to for the next 7 Sundays, or at least the next 6 Sundays. It's only a 7-episode season. Maybe season 1 didn't perform as well as HBO would have liked, and this is kind of like a regrouping year. Or maybe because season 2 for Magic with the Lakers doesn't go quite as well as season 1, they felt like they kind of had to mirror that with season 2 of the show. Who the hell knows? But all I do know is that for the next 6 Sundays, I will be sitting in front of my TV with a bag of popcorn in hand, ready to throw down with the Lakers, the Celtics, and one of the big bad guys, which I think has a lot of dramatic potential, Moses Malone from the Rockets. I don't know who he is in real life, but the way he's described in the book makes him sound like every scary basketball player that you've ever heard of kind of rolled into one. He's just physical and he's intimidating. He's just terrifying, and I really look forward to seeing who's cast in the role and how he'll be depicted, because there's going to be a lot of interesting dramatic potential there once Moses Malone starts to kind of lock horns with the Lakers. But at this point, I'm officially rambling. Let's wrap this sucker up. Thank you so much for watching this review. If you enjoyed it, please consider hitting that notification bell. I'm not sure if I'll be doing weekly reviews of the show. I mean, it all depends upon traffic. If people like the videos, I'll keep making them. But at a minimum, I'll be back in 6 weeks for the Season 2 finale review. But I can't thank you enough for watching my video. Hope everyone has a fantastic week. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.